Good Friday evening, everyone. Severe Weather Team 9 meteorologist Nathan Shutt joining you for this edition of Nate at 8 overall. Another pleasant day across the Ohio Valley. Of course, the big change we had for today was the increase in humidity, uncomfortably humid across the area. And now it's the beginning of our period where we have an unsettled stretch and a humid stretch of weather that does lie ahead for us. And that is a bit of what we're going to be talking about on this edition of Nate at 8, that wet and humid stretch of weather ahead. So we're going to map out that. And of course, the big story for this is this weekend, right? So we're going to be diving into the forecast for this weekend. We'll deal with those scattered showers and thunderstorms likely for most of the weekend. Yes, that precipitation still more hit or miss, but it is going to be present for most of the weekend. It will be cooler this weekend likely, but it does remain humid. So we'll see. Our temperatures can even hold in the 70s this weekend, but it's not cool, comfortable 70s, right? It's muggy, uncomfortable 70s is the best way to put it that we'll likely see as we go throughout the weekend. Hello there, Tyson, joining us on YouTube. And Kim, hello there. Good evening to you. And Austin, good evening. Today, hot, muggy. Absolutely it was, wasn't it? I felt raindrops hitting me as I'm walking, sitting on the porch, watching the rain and possible lightning, Austin says. Austin touching on this. Some of the showers and thunderstorms we saw return today. The chance was at least there. The precipitation certainly more scattered, but we did see those showers and thunderstorms return today. And again, just marking now the beginning of an unsettled stretch of weather that lies ahead for us here into the Ohio Valley. Sandy says thunder, lightning, rain in New Martinsville right now. Thanks for the report there, Sandy. Thank you all for tuning in on this Friday evening. So starting off with a time lapse overlooking the city of Steubenville, and well, it's hazy. Yeah, it's definitely a reduction in visibility there on the horizon. Still dealing with some smoke from Canadian wildfires, and at times, we've had some rain in the mix as well. And we're dealing with the reduction in air quality today, although it hasn't been a great reduction in air quality, dealing with a moderate air quality in place for today, and likely the same going into the weekend. So there can be some reduction, just likely not going to be a great reduction in air quality as we extend the weekend. Moderate air quality just means that, very sensitive individuals, sensitive to the reduction in air quality, may wish to limit, some of those outdoor strenuous activities. Just something to note as we do extend into the weekend and for this evening as well. Our current temperatures are falling in the 70s. Most of us were back in the 80s. We've been dealing with some of these rain-cooled temperatures now going into the evening, dropping our temperatures in the 70s for most locations. Kim saying had rain, lightning, and thunder. Thanks for the report there, Kim. So our temperatures, as they fall in the 70s and likely end up in the 60s by tomorrow morning, going to get awfully close to where likely our dew point will remain as we go overnight. And that just naturally presents itself as well for a lot of these nights ahead for that potential for some fog, and especially whenever we get some clearing in our skies, which I think we can see not so much tonight, tomorrow night, but I think maybe a little bit more Sunday night to Monday. And that's where anytime we get a little bit of clearing as these temperatures near the dew point, that's where we're really prone to see some fog develop. Not to say we still can't see some tonight, tomorrow night, and for a lot of these nights ahead throughout the next week. It's just that whenever we can get some clearing in addition to the temperatures near the dew point, that's a better recipe to see fog develop, or at least it can be more dense, a little more widespread. So we'll watch for it. Likely going to be more patchy, but there's possibly some later on tonight, tomorrow night. But I think Sunday night into Monday is our next round where we can get some clearing, maybe dealing with a little more dense fog going into Monday morning's commute. But that range, the icon there is certainly the best way to put it. That's 65 to 70, just right? Uncomfortably humid today. And as we look ahead going over the next week, we can not only be in this range of dealing with this humidity, uncomfortably humid, but I think at times where it's just unbearably humid. So that's the best way to put it, I think, with dew point 65, maybe at times 70 plus, just uncomfortably to unbearably humid. There's no relief in sight here going through the middle of next week. I do think there's some relief in sight, but it's probably about a week from now. It's probably going into next Friday, next Saturday. So going into the following weekend is when we can finally see some relief from this humidity. But up until that point, I do not think we're getting much at all. This is going to be a very humid stretch of weather for us here in the Ohio Valley. Just marking the start here of, again, humid and wet stretch of weather. The thunder's very loud here in Wetzel. Austin reporting for this evening. Rain in St. Clairsville, Renee says. And we are dry on Hooverson Heights, Jackie is reporting. And Kim saying Steubenville, Pleasant Heights. Thank you all so much for reporting in for this evening. And there's the showers and thunderstorms starting to become greater in coverage as we do extend here closer to the time the sun sets. And we'll likely notice more widespread showers and some thunderstorms in the mix here early on tonight. So we are seeing that further increase in coverage now that we're getting closer to the time the sun sets. And I'd watch here early on tonight, leading up to midnight, that the first part of tonight, that is when we can deal with more widespread showers in place and even a thunderstorm. Thankfully, not anticipating anything impactful. I know we did have a severe thunderstorm warning into locations near East Liverpool, but I still think overall that a lot of what we're seeing is likely not going to be real impactful as we go throughout this evening. But we had a thunderstorm mature just to the extent where there was potential still with some dry air present into a portion of our atmosphere to get what we call a downburst. And that potential was there, looking to areas near East Liverpool. I haven't seen any reports coming in so far yet, whether that did actually occur. Kept a close eye on radar. Didn't see anything quite offhand from what I was gathering that indicated that downburst may have occurred. But that's why we did have that one severe thunderstorm warning. That cell now has weakened quite a bit. And that's what we're looking at. So if I scroll in here near East Liverpool, that's weakened quite a bit. And even when we look at velocity as this occurred, not picking up too much there as that did pass through. That would indicate a strong indication that a downburst had occurred. But we were keeping an eye on that. Again, that's the area where we did have that severe thunderstorm warning. That was right around this time, leading into 7 o'clock, as it gained just enough strength to bring that potential, and then further weakened as it made its way there, not only near East Liverpool, really just south of East Liverpool as well. But again, I think overall that the risk is very low for severe weather this evening, and the potential there for flooding looks low as well. I don't foresee many impacts, if any, for us here throughout this evening. It's just more of a nuisance, if you're heading out here early on tonight to have to deal with some rain, and certainly can still be some heavy downpours within these thunderstorms. And that can always be, impactful as well, especially when driving. So just still watch for it. It's increasing in coverage. So if you haven't had much rain yet, you're likely going to over the next couple of hours, as we'll see this really start to pick up likely in coverage as the sun does set. Tuesday through Wednesday looks miserable, Austin says. Fingers crossed the muggy meter will drop down soon. I think we'll have to wait about a week, Austin. I think it could very well be until Friday, Saturday. It may very well have to wait a whole week before we finally see that humidity drop off at least some. Any of these storms severe? So we just touched on that, Christopher. Likely not. No tornadoes. No. Haley, no tornadoes. Good evening there, Joe. Good evening. It wasn't a storm in East Liverpool, only rain, Tyson reporting. So saw that weaken quite a bit, and did look like most of that stayed south there. It was the East Liverpool area, but most of it did stay south of East Liverpool. So let's jump into Futurecast. And as we advance this, you notice the model picking up on that more widespread precipitation will likely see move in with these showers and a thunderstorm here early on tonight. And then notice once we get past or closer to it, but especially past that midnight mark, precipitation, while it continues, is likely back to more of a scattered variety. And then it just is with us just occasionally. You'll notice in the Futurecast that we're dealing with these scattered showers and thunderstorms, and primarily talking about the daytime hours here, because I do think there can be a period of just a few showers in place overnight Saturday. But in terms of our daytime hours, just look how occasional these showers and thunderstorms are. Yes, they're scattered, but they're likely present in our area for most, if not all, of the daytime hours for both Saturday as well as Sunday. So just going to be dealing with a pretty wet weekend overall. Yes, it's still scattered in nature, but overall, just I think a wet weekend in general. By Sunday night, then I think is when any of these showers will taper off altogether across the area. Like we mentioned, that's when we get some clearing in our skies. This can set us up for better risk for some fog than going into Monday morning. And we do likely start off Monday dry, but by Monday afternoon, evening, that potential for some showers and thunderstorms will return. And I think we can repeat that again into Tuesday, where we can start off dry and have that further potential for showers and thunderstorms going into the second half of Tuesday. So that looks to be what we'll see early on next week. But again, for this weekend, we're dealing with that potential for showers and some thunderstorms in the morning as well as in the afternoon. So both time periods, that potential's there. A lot of cloud cover this weekend. And both of those in combination will do a couple of things. Number one is that it likely keeps our highs into the 70s. We're well in the 70s, but it does likely keep us in the 70s this weekend. Of course, keep in mind, it's not comfortable, right? It's humid 70s. So not cool, comfortable 70s, but humid 70s. And number two, this can keep our severe risk low. So thankfully, it does look like that risk for severe weather is going to stay low as we go through the weekend when we're dealing with a lot of cloud cover and we're dealing with these scattered showers and thunderstorms for both the morning as well as the afternoon. Now, the one impact I think we will have to watch for going throughout this weekend is that potential for excessive rainfall or flooding. And I think we can deal with some flooding as we go through Saturday as well as Sunday. Now, that being said, this will not likely be widespread flooding. This would likely still be more localized or isolated flooding, just like what we've seen as of recent with these rounds of heavy rain. Is that, if we're dealing with those rounds of heavy rain over the same location, then we could deal with flooding in some spots. And I think that's going to be the primary thing to watch for Saturday and Sunday. The emphasis, of course, during the daytime hours, but even more so likely into the afternoon and evening where we're getting those heaviest downpours with thunderstorms. That's the time period to watch for both Saturday and Sunday. And I think this risk could even carry over at times as we go through through much of next week. There's a lot of moisture for these storms to tap into. We're going to be dealing with some very heavy downpours within these over the next couple of days. And again, I think for a lot of the next week that we'll have in place with this active weather pattern in terms of the rain chances on a daily basis, that I think the potential for localized flooding is just something we'll have to continue to monitor. But in terms of this weekend, I think this is going to be the one impact to watch for, while the potential for severe weather does look low for us. Now, early next week, it's still early to try to make any kind of call for a severe weather risk, but I will say Monday into Tuesday, if we could muster some sunshine in addition to dry weather leading up into the afternoon, then that does just naturally present a little higher risk, I think, for some strong severe thunderstorms with respect to this weekend. So while I think that risk is overall this weekend, that is one thing we'll continue to monitor. We may have to deal with some early next week with at least a chance for some strong to severe thunderstorms going into the afternoon and evening hours, Monday into Tuesday. The scattered showers and thunderstorms into Wednesday and Thursday, we can see some in the morning as well. We'll deal with them going throughout likely a lot of the day, Wednesday into Thursday. By Friday then would be our following day where I think the rain chance does lower. We can sneak in at least one or two dry days going into the following weekend. Was we can end up dry late next week. So there is, I think there is at least a dry day in the mix there with a low rain chance. And that's the same time period again where I think that humidity will start to drop some. So up until Friday, next Friday, I think, we're dealing with the potential for a shower and thunderstorm on a daily basis. We're dealing with humid conditions, again, uncomfortably to unbearably humid conditions during that stretch as well. Heavy downpours within thunderstorms present that potential for localized flooding if we're dealing with those rounds of heavy rain over the same location, and maybe at times that potential for severe weather as well. And again, just naturally, what helps increase that risk for severe weather into the afternoon would just be dry conditions and sunshine for the morning into the afternoon. That just naturally presents a higher risk for severe weather. And we could see that set up into Monday and Tuesday if we can muster enough sunshine for the first half of those days, as well as dry conditions. So that is one thing we'll watch for early on into next week. Teresa saying, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in there, Teresa. Carlos saying barely rain and cold rain today. So you're one of those locations where, while not much so far, watch here over the next couple of hours as you'll likely pick up a round of rain here early on tonight. Carol saying we got a lot of wind and rain. Got a lot of wind and rain coming our way. And Christopher saying, why is it so muggy at night? And what we're doing with those dew points, anytime those dew points are mid upper 60s, it does a couple. Obviously it feels uncomfortably humid to us, right? So that's why, it just continues overnight. So it's just uncomfortably humid even overnight. But notice those overnight lows as well, how a lot of this, it's mid upper 60s for a lot of that stretch. And that's why, oftentimes this time of the year, that dew point can be the limiting factor in how much we cool. And whenever that is the case, you have that potential to see some fog. And especially if you can get some clearing and lighter winds, then there's even a higher risk to see that fog develop. So what happens when the temperature nears the dew point, the air becomes saturated. As the air becomes saturated, the air will struggle to cool anymore once it becomes saturated. And as it becomes saturated, that's when we can start to see some fog develop. And that's where we can deal with that, patchy fog going into the following morning. Those mid upper 60s, that's where we are, even closer to 70 going into Thursday. Notice then as the dew points likely start to drop some, our overnight lows drop some as well. So once we get some drier air, in addition to some clearing, we can get a little bit cooler nights likely later on next week. But here near term, there's just, we're dealing with, again, here near term, just some warm, humid afternoons and mild and muggy nights. It's one of those situations where there's just not much relief at night, right? Unfortunately, open up the window to let some cooler air in, and it's just mild and muggy. This is mild and muggy air. It's unfortunate, and that's what we're going to deal with for a lot of this next week. Austin saying the lightning is definitely getting sharper. And good evening there, Shauna. Thank you for tuning in. Why was it so hot today? So I think, Christopher, part of that, in terms of the temperature wise, similar to what we had yesterday, but the humidity was higher. So there definitely was factoring in the heat index, making it feel a little warmer than the actual air temperature. So that's why you may have noticed it felt even a little hotter today with respect to yesterday. And why is that the case? Well, it all has to do with sweat, our sweat. All has to do with our sweat, which is the same reason why, if you go out on a humid day, it's easier to get drenched in sweat, right, than it is if you go out on a more comfortable day without that humidity. And the reason why is when we're dealing with a higher dew point, higher humidity, is that less of that sweat on your skin is evaporating. Less of it is evaporating. So what's happening is, obviously there's more sweat, right, to deal with, getting sweatier. And in addition to that, we lose that process that cools us. So that's the way our body cools itself. It cools itself through sweating. And once that sweat evaporates, we get what's called evaporative cooling. That's actually a cooling effect. So when the sweat evaporates off your skin, it helps cool us. But of course, what happens when the sweat doesn't evaporate? Well, it doesn't cool us. And then we feel even hotter. And that's why when we're dealing with some of these humid days and the rate of evaporation of that sweat is lower. So, you're not evaporating as much sweat off your skin. So you're not getting that cooling effect. It's feeling hotter. And that's why when we're in these humid days that we have that heat index is what it's called. And that's factoring in the heat and humidity and giving us a number of how hot it actually feels to us. And that's the science behind it, is that reason it feels hotter to us is that the sweat on our skin is not evaporating as much when it's humid out. So we lose that cooling effect, and ultimately it feels hotter to us. So that's why you may have noticed it felt even hotter today. And again, we're dealing with that humid stretch of weather here. And the same story as what we had for today for a lot of this stretch going through next week until we start to see it lower going into the following weekend. Jackie says, hope tomorrow afternoon is good. It's my birthday. I hope so, Jackie. Well, happy early birthday. Hopefully not too bad tomorrow. Again, it's not a washout this weekend, and by no means. I know this as some icons that look like it may be, but just showing that it's going to be rather cloudy, right, with these showers and thunderstorms. I don't think we're going to spot much of any sunshine throughout the weekend, just a lot of cloud cover. But again, it is more scattered. As we go through a lot of the weekend, it's not a washout. It's on and off. It's just that it's fairly occasional, right? These rounds of scattered showers and thunderstorms, you deal with, several rounds of rain over Saturday and Sunday in a given location. So it's just on and off likely for a lot of this weekend. And, may very well be one of those locations that end up more on the miss than the hit and miss side of the equation. And I think there is the potential for some locations with this being scattered for a lot of the weekend. Some of us could very well end up with light rainfall amounts, maybe only up to about 1/4 of an inch, while others that are picking up some rounds of heavy rain can be piling up 2+ inches of rain. And you could even see that over a short period of time. And of course, that's when the flooding concerns come into play. So rainfall amounts can vary a lot across the area this weekend, where again, some of us could get light amounts, maybe only up to 1/4 of an inch, while others can pick up 2+ inches of rain. And unfortunately, it's too hard to try to predict exactly where. I want to say too hard. It's really impossible to try to predict where exactly we can see these more pockets of heavier rain set up. And that's unfortunately still a limitation to modern day forecasting when we're dealing with the scattered showers and thunderstorms, is exactly where those pockets of heavier rain, these thunderstorms, exactly where they will be, right? It's scattered in nature and it's hard to pinpoint a specific location, but that will likely be the case going throughout this weekend. So, not all of us are, dealing with the rounds of heavy rain, but certainly some of us can. And then those that do, that's where unfortunately we have that potential for flooding. Let's see. Could there be severe thunderstorm warnings and wind advisories on Saturday and Sunday? Christopher is asking. And I think it's a low risk for us for severe thunderstorm warning, not anticipating any wind advisories. I think it's a low risk for severe weather this weekend. And with that being said, likely not going to be dealing with severe weather, but I think that potential for flooding is there. So we're still watching for that potential for impacts the weekend, but I think the risk for severe weather stays low for us with a lot of cloud cover and the potential for rain for both morning and afternoon. When I do think maybe a little higher risk, it's too early to make a call, but we'll be watching early next week if we can get some dry conditions and some sunshine, more sunshine than what we're going to have this weekend, leading up in the afternoon hours on Monday, Tuesday, that can present a little higher risk for severe weather. So we'll watch, I think, early next week, maybe for a little higher risk then, but it does look low for this weekend. Greg says, must be groundhog weather. He's hanging around my garden. Groundhog liking this weather, huh? Could we see 90 degrees in July and August? Absolutely, Christopher. Yes, we can definitely see 90 degrees in July and August, especially going into July, our hottest month of the year. But in July and August, that's where we get into the hot stretch of summer. And yes, absolutely, we could see 90 degrees and from July into August. Do you know what the weather would be on July 4th? Unfortunately not, Christopher. It's too early to make that call, but certainly keep an eye on that. And as we get closer to July 4th, I'll give you an idea of what we could be seeing. But I wish I could answer it, but unfortunately still too far out as we look ahead. But certainly we'll keep an eye on it. And as soon as we get better grasp on what we could be seeing in July 4th, be sure to let you know. We will be swimming, Tyson says. Good weather for that. Absolutely. This is great poolside weather. Not so much with the rain, but, dodging some rounds of rain. But in terms of just dealing with the humid, warm temperatures, yeah, good poolside weather in that regard. But unfortunate to have to dodge some rounds of rain looking ahead, but not raining all day, so still some time to be had in the pool by the poolside. Just have to be ready to head indoors when the thunder roars, right? Head indoors when the thunder roars. That's as the saying goes, as if you can hear thunder, you are close enough to be struck by lightning. So that's why there's that saying, when thunder roars, go indoors. It's certainly a good thing. Even outside of severe weather, obviously lightning is a risk in any thunderstorm, and you don't want to be caught outside in general as in thunderstorms. So certainly with that as well. How much rain is expected? So like we were mentioning, Christopher, I think it's going to vary quite a bit this weekend. Well, a lot of that precipitation is going to be scattered throughout the weekend. We can have a period there of more numerous showers and thunderstorms, especially Saturday morning. But in general, for a lot of the weekend, I think the precipitation's more scattered in nature. So we could be very well dealing with a large range of rainfall amounts, anywhere from up to a quarter to possibly more than 2 inches of rain. It's going to be a large range. And I know obviously not really the forecast, a good forecast for a specific area, but it's hard when this precipitation is scattered in nature with how much those rainfall amounts can vary over a fairly short distance, that it's really hard to pinpoint where we'll see the exact locations of those thunderstorms or heavier rain. And if you average it out, I think a lot of us can see upwards about a half inch to an inch of rain if you were to, give a general number across our area. But I think overall what's going to happen is it's just large range of numbers. So some of us that, are missing more of the rain than getting it throughout the weekend could very well stay closer to a quarter of an inch, while others can see over 2 inches and maybe even more than that throughout the course of the weekend. So it's probably going to vary quite a bit as we go throughout the weekend. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning in for this Friday edition of Nate at 8. I appreciate it as always. I hope everyone had a great week. As we look ahead for this coming week, I know we're all probably dreading a little bit the humid stretch of weather. Not pleasant, right? Not pleasant. And as we look ahead going into next week, but we'll say as we go into the following weekend, I think we'll see that humidity lower some. We'll see some rain, the rain chances lower some, but we got to make it through at least next Thursday with this humid stretch of weather, and we'll deal with showers and thunderstorms, at least the chance for them likely on a daily basis. So, of course, we'll be right here mapping out those showers and thunderstorms as we go throughout the weekend. And I do urge you to stay tuned this weekend for the latest coming up tomorrow with meteorologist Hannah George. Meteorologist Brian Ivy will be then in on Sunday. So make sure to stay tuned with them going throughout the weekend. And they'll be right back here to into Monday morning. That's when we'll have that next edition of Nate at 8, Monday afternoon. I don't know why I said morning. Monday. Afternoon, evening. I will not be here in the morning. Monday afternoon to evening for that next edition of Nate at 8 on Monday evening. So until then, again, stay tuned with Hannah George on Saturday, Brian Ivy on Sunday for the latest throughout the weekend, and continue to give the latest on those rounds of rain that they're going to be tracking as we go throughout next week on that next edition of Nate at 8. Up until that point, I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend, and I'll see all of you on the next edition of Nate at 8.